Okay, let's dive into this explainer. We spend so much time obsessing over the conscious choices we make every single day, what we eat, how we work out, which supplements we're taking, but beneath your conscious awareness lies a highly advanced, fully automated code, and it's silently dictating how well you sleep, how fast you age, and how resilient you are to stress. So today, we're going to decode that hidden operating system. Right now, at this exact second as you listen to this, what invisible biological forces are shaping the quality of your life? We have to realize the human body is this incredibly intricate, deeply interconnected network. Every moment, there's a silent operating system making countless decisions entirely on your behalf, profoundly shaping your long-term health, your emotional resilience, and your metabolic function. Meet the Master Control Board, the Autonomic Nervous System, or the ANS. Now, this isn't just basic anatomy. This is the hidden director of your biological symphony. Operating almost entirely outside of your conscious control, the ANS is constantly modulating things like your heart rate, your blood pressure, body temperature, digestion. It's the ultimate manager of your systemic homeostasis. It's this dynamic, critical balancing act, orchestrating how your body adapts to acute stressors and environmental changes without you ever having to consciously think about it. It's literally a biological tug-of-war happening inside you every single second. The autonomic nervous system is split into two main opposing branches. First up, you've got the sympathetic nervous system. That's your classic fight or flight response. It primes you for action by mobilizing resources, spiking your heart rate, and actually diverting oxygen-rich blood away from your organs directly into your skeletal muscles. But pulling in the exact opposite direction is the parasympathetic nervous system, your rest and digest state. This is the biological brake pedal. It allows for energy conservation, metabolic replenishment, and deep, deep recovery. To truly grasp how this works, we need to look under the hood at the neurochemistry. The sympathetic branch relies heavily on norepinephrine, which binds to adrenergic receptors to trigger that faster heart rate. Conversely, the parasympathetic branch uses acetylcholine, binding to muscarinic receptors to actually slow your heart rate down and promote digestion. These aren't just abstract textbook terms. These are the actual physical molecules altering your biological reality from moment to moment. So we have this incredible push and pull managed by the brain and the spinal cord, but that opens up a really fascinating mystery. What happens when we look beyond the central nervous system? Is the brain actually the only system running the show? The answer to that question is hidden in a pretty staggering number: 100 million. That is the number of neurons living completely independently inside the human gut. Think about that, a population of nerve cells that actually outnumbers the neurons in your entire spinal cord. Welcome to your second brain, the enteric nervous system, or ENS. This is a vast, complex network of neurons embedded directly into the walls of your GI tract. And what's absolutely mind-blowing about the enteric system is its structural independence. Using its own reflex microcircuits and neurotransmitters, things like serotonin and nitric oxide, the gut can independently manage complex tasks like peristalsis, which is the coordinated movement of food through your body. Literally, if you severed its connection to the brain, this localized network would just keep on functioning entirely on its own. Now, as you can imagine, this combined autonomic network is incredibly complex, and sometimes it glitches. When patients show up with unexplainable dizziness or severe crushing fatigue, scientists use highly strict clinical protocols to map out the integrity of the system. They use tests like QS-ART to measure sweat output via electrical currents. The Valsalva maneuver monitors beat-to-beat blood pressure, while the head-up tilt table test evaluates how well your cardiovascular system actually fights gravity. Doctors are essentially hacking into your biology here, searching for the exact point of failure. Let's look at a real-world example of what these tests reveal when the system gets stuck. In a normal autonomic response, say just to standing up, your blood pressure stays stable and your heart rate smoothly adapts. But contrast that with a condition like postural orthostatic tachycardia syndrome, or POTS. In POTS, the sympathetic nervous system gets stuck in absolute overdrive. Often driven by lower blood volume or nerve damage, just standing up causes blood to pool in the lower body. So what happens? The brain panics. It unleashes this excessive sympathetic discharge of adrenaline and norepinephrine, causing your heart rate to absolutely skyrocket just to keep blood flowing to the brain. Understanding extreme conditions like that forces us to ask a much deeper question about how our biology is physically wired together. What physical structure actually connects our visceral organs, like the beating of our heart or the movement of our gut, to our emotional responses and our deepest feelings of safety or panic? Enter cranial nerve X, much better known as the vagus nerve. Originating right in the brainstem, it wanders all the way down through your neck, your chest, and deep into your abdomen, connecting to almost every major organ along the way. Carrying about 75% of all parasympathetic fibers in your entire body, the vagus nerve is the ultimate biological brake pedal. It's the primary mechanism your body uses to physically downshift out of fight or flight and drop into a state of recovery, healthy digestion, and reduced inflammation. Now, exactly how the vagus nerve influences emotional trauma is actually the subject of a massive ongoing scientific debate. On one side, you have the polyvagal theory, which proposes that our regulation is hierarchical, driven by an unconscious neuroception of safety or threat. But on the other side, a physiological critique disputes those specific evolutionary claims. They argue that changes in heart rate point to peripheral mechanisms, not necessarily direct central nervous system control. But here's the thing, while scientists debate the underlying neuroanatomy, both sides agree on one profound truth. Our physical bodies are inextricably connected to our perception of our environment. So, whether we're talking about complex emotional states or simple cardiovascular reflexes, the vagus nerve's parasympathetic influence is undeniably huge. But how do we actually know if ours is working well? If the vagus nerve is so crucial to our resilience, how could we actively measure its strength? This is where heart rate variability, or HRV, comes in. See, your heart doesn't beat like a perfectly spaced metronome. There are these tiny microvariations in the milliseconds between each consecutive beat. That variability reflects the constant dynamic interaction between the sympathetic system hitting the gas and the parasympathetic system hitting the brakes. A high HRV means your body is highly adaptable, it's resilient to stress, and it's recovering efficiently. It is literally the ultimate non-invasive biological battery indicator for human resilience and aging. When you check the recovery score on your wearable fitness tracker in the morning, you're usually looking at a few specific mathematical formulas of this variability. SDNN measures your overall autonomic variability to help predict long-term cardiovascular health. RMSSD, on the other hand, reflects the rapid beat-to-beat changes that are heavily driven by the vagus nerve itself. It's basically the gold standard for tracking your daily sleep, stress, and recovery. Okay, so you have a window into your nervous system. You can literally see your HRV on your wrist or your phone, but observation just isn't enough, is it? The million-dollar question here is, we can measure it, but can we actively rewire this biological operating system? Can we intentionally increase our vagal tone? The answer is a resounding yes, and it all starts with a very specific number, 5.5. Research shows that 5.5 breaths per minute, that's inhaling for about 5.5 seconds and exhaling for 5.5 seconds, is the exact resonant breathing rate that maximizes heart rate variability in most humans. Let's break down the exact biological mechanics of why this works. When you consciously slow your breathing down to this resonant frequency, something incredible happens. First, your slow inhalation activates these pressure sensors, called baroreceptors, right in your arteries. Then, as you exhale smoothly, you trigger a massive wave of vagal parasympathetic activation. Your vagus nerve literally releases the neurotransmitter acetylcholine directly onto the mechanic receptors of your heart's pacemaker. Your heart rate slows down, your blood pressure stabilizes, and your HRV is instantly maximized. You are manually overriding your autonomic nervous system using nothing but air. How cool is that? But hey, breathing isn't the only tool in our toolkit. We can actually physically rewire the system for the long haul. Consistent aerobic exercise acts like autonomic training. Over time, it physically desensitizes your heart's beta receptors to adrenaline, so you become less reactive to panic signals. Then you have vagus nerve stimulation, or VNS. These are devices that deliver targeted electrical impulses to the vagus nerve, rapidly shifting patients out of a chronic fight or flight state and into profound states of physiological healing. And of course, high-quality deep sleep, which is absolutely non-negotiable for restoring your RMSSD and achieving metabolic homeostasis. When you pull all these pieces together, you arrive at this really profound realization. Health isn't just a random collection of separate habits you check off a list. It is the emergent result of countless interconnected biological processes occurring every single moment. The way your breathing influences your heart, how your heart communicates with your brain, how your brain dictates your inflammation. It's not isolated. It's all one unified, deeply intelligent system. I love this quote here because it really hits the nail on the head. The body is one deeply interconnected system where tiny decisions regarding breath, movement, and recovery alter decades of future outcomes. Every time you take a slow exhale, every time you prioritize deep sleep, every single time you engage in cardiovascular exercise, you are actively upgrading this hidden operating system. You're no longer just a passenger in your own body. You actually have access to the controls now. So having seen the hidden operating system running your life, from the vagus nerve all the way down to the 100 million neurons in your gut. How are you going to rewrite your biology today?